In this video, I intend to present what is presumably my unique take on the Euthyphro Dilemma. In order to do this, I'm going to use a tennis analogy, since the US Open just concluded recently, in which
this phenomenal man now is part of history. 3 successive Grand Slams, 21 successive Grand Slam matches, and he has now won every single Grand Slam.
So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise to find out that Rafael Nadal is ranked number 1 in the world, which brings me to my analogy. Let's suppose for the moment that I were to maintain that Roger Federer, currently ranked number 2, is truly the best tennis player. And in order to defend this claim, I said, well, Roger Federer's essential properties or essential nature is the standard for the best tennis player.
It feels incredible. Can I keep it?
No, that one's mine. How does that make you feel?
Obviously, this is a very silly way to answer that question, mainly because this is question begging, as in what exactly makes him the standard for the greatest tennis player. But more importantly, it's avoiding the deeper question, namely, what is the standard for the greatest or best tennis player?
No chocolate balls.
Okay.
I think we should do a strip search too.
Excuse me?
It's protocol.
Are you kidding me?
With this in mind, let's move on to the Euthyphro Dilemma, or rather, the theist response to the Euthyphro Dilemma.
Okay, here it is. Option 3. God's nature, aka his essential properties, is a standard of goodness.
It's not a standard external to God, nor is it something he arbitrarily creates, but is how he essentially is.
Now, like in the Roger Federer example, this is a silly way to solve this problem, because the deeper issue in the Euthyphro Dilemma, the way I understand it, has little to do with what God is or what his essential properties might be, and has more to do with a more basic question, namely, what is moral or what is good, which in turn presents what I believe is the true dilemma for the theist, since you have two approaches to this more basic question. The first approach is to claim that God is moral, or God's essential properties are moral, which, as I've already demonstrated, is question-making, since you're assuming God is moral in order to make the claim that his essential properties are moral. The second option is to develop some sort of standard that is altogether independent from God, and then compare God's essential properties to that standard to see if they match. Moving back to the Roger Federer analogy again, now let's suppose that a standard for the greatest tennis player, or part of the standard, is the amount of Grand Slams won, meaning the more Grand Slams you win, the better tennis player you are or must be. If this is the case, then Roger Federer would be the greatest tennis player, since he has won the most Grand Slams, at least on the men's side. But again, what is important to understand here, that the standard that the greatest tennis player must have won the most amount of Grand Slams is a standard altogether independent from Roger Federer, since before Roger Federer had the most Grand Slams, Pete Sampras had the most Grand Slams, meaning at one point Pete Sampras was the greatest tennis player until Roger Federer won more Grand Slams. In short, God's essential properties, or essential nature, whatever it may be, is irrelevant to the Euthyphro Dilemma, for the claim that his nature or essential properties are moral to even make sense. You first need a full account of what moral is, which implies a moral standard that would be independent to God's essential properties.
Well, I was thinking...
Oh. Time is up.